Hello beautiful, welcome back to Nat's Beautiful Life. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my October wrap up. I finished 7 books in the month of October and I have some really good things to talk about. You'll also see that I have a lot of library books this month. I have been trying to slow down my book buying this year by getting stuff that I know that either I can't get at the library when I want it, or things like classics and things like that that I want, or really big books that I know are going to take me a while to read. Sometimes I do that, but I've been trying to be more kind of particular about the books that I'm buying at the moment. I do have Book of the Month. I have a big shelf of Book of the Month books right there. I'm not sponsored. So I do typically get at least one new book every month with that service. However, you can skip a book, or a month, excuse me, if you don't like any of the books that they're offering that month. So I don't really feel obligated to get a book every single month if I don't like it. But anyway, my point is, I've been trying to utilize the library more. So without any further ado, let's get into the books I actually read this month. Actually, last month, October, because this is November. All right, let's get moving. So the very first book that I read, I think you've heard me talk about it before. The Woman That Could Not Silence by Kate Moore. This book is, well, it's good. I gave it 5 stars. It's very annotated. I typically tend to annotate mostly nonfiction books because I feel like I'm studying, sort of. Like, I feel like I'm learning things through the book, and so it's just helping me remember these things. The sad part is I actually can't remember the lady's name. Elizabeth. Yeah, Elizabeth is the name of Elizabeth Packard is the name of the lady we're following. So if you don't know anything about Kate Moore, she is the girl who wrote, or the woman who wrote The Radium Girls. Excellent, excellent book. If you have not read that, go pick it up. Amazing. And I have been just waiting for her to release something new. And I even have, like, in my mind, like, some different topics or things that I would love for her to write about. And I've even read some books I'm like, if only Kate Moore would have read or wrote this book, like wrote this story instead of this person, because she's just so good and she's just such an amazing researcher to get into these books, and she just writes in such an easy way to read, and so you learn. Anyway, this book is about Elizabeth Packard, who after 20 years of marriage and 6 children was put in an insane asylum because at that time, this was right before the Civil War, and then the book continues after the Civil War. Women were considered, or wives were considered, the property of their husbands. And so if the man said she had gone insane, then he could put her away into an asylum, and there was nothing that could be done. She had no rights. She did have a son who was 18, but at that time you were not considered an adult until you were 21, so he couldn't take her out of there until he turned 21, so she had to stay there. Women could not be released on their own recognizance. They had to have a male guardian to take them in after they left these asylums. So this is Elizabeth's account of not only being in the asylum, seeing the things that she saw, and also feeling like all I did was give my opinion. That's like a whole other thing that I feel like you really need to get into this book to see. She had a difference of opinion in certain religious aspects that her husband did not hold. And when people talked about them or whatever, she gave her opinion. And he told her not to, and she was like, I have a right to my thoughts. Whether or not I agree with all of the thoughts that she had, she did have a right to have them. And I just really feel like this was an amazing woman, because she didn't just fight for herself and for womankind, she also fought for the actual mentally ill people who are in these asylums. A lot of the women she found had no need to be in the asylum. They were just in there because their husbands wanted them. And then she was up against so many different things. And then also she saw there were actual mentally ill people who were being mistreated or not treated at all. And so this book really talks about she would not be silent. She would continue to do it. And she had a support system that legally couldn't do anything for her at times, even though they tried very hard. And she was not knowing a lot of things were going on behind the scenes. But when she got out, she actually worked to change a lot of the laws and things like that. So a lot of the freedoms that we as women and as married women have today are a result of this woman fighting for us. So I think this is an amazing book. I do highly recommend it. Again, 5 stars from me. Second book I have to talk about here is Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read this in a day and really enjoyed it. I think I may have spoken about this already, but just to give you a quick little rundown. So Monday is her best friend is, what is her name? Claudia. Claudia's best friend's name is Monday. Monday goes missing and nobody can figure out where she is, and nobody believes Claudia that something's gone wrong. Monday would not just disappear like this. And so she tells people, some people do all they can to figure it out, but there's kind of blocked. And the difference is kind of like Monday lives in a very poor neighborhood. There's a lot of stuff going on, and there are ways that, because the family is split up and all of this stuff, that they can hide the fact that why Monday's not there. This is just a very interesting book. It is told in the before Monday was found, and you find this out in the very first sentence. The very first sentence, and yes, I have. I've read this sentence on here before because I already talked about it in a TBR. This is the story of how my best friend disappeared, how nobody noticed she was gone except me, and how nobody cared until they found her 1 year later. So this book is told in the before and the after. So the before Monday was found and the after. And there's also the before, so when Monday is actually with Claudia. And you see like kind of a fracturing as you go, and you're like, once you get towards the end of the book, you start going, wait a minute, is this before or after? And because things start to shift, and you get a little confused until you get to the end, and it's just, this book is so good. I think I gave it 4 stars, 4.5, I don't know. But Tiffany D. Jackson, amazing writer, and I just really love this story. I love this book. And I did pick up her other one, White Smoke, from the library, and I was going to read that, but I started reading it a little bit, and I was just like, you know what, I don't think I'm ready for this, because it was like a spookier book, and I think I had just had enough of that. So, hadn't got to that one yet, but this one, definitely 2 thumbs up, love it. Another one that I read, and I had it here. I was about to say, I thought I had it here today. I did, because I looked for it, but it's not here. I think that Ryan took it to work so that he could read it at lunch or whatever, but it's a library book, and it is You Let Me In by this person. Can't remember their name, so sorry. This is a creepy book. I read this in one day. I think I just mentioned that already. I don't know if I didn't. There it is again. Uncomfortable. It is a creature horror, which means there's a boogeyman pretty much. So creature horror, think, you know, Freddy Krueger, think Jason, you know, a creature. But this one's like a fae creature, and it is not for the faint of heart. This book is gross. This book is very uncomfortable, but I don't know what else to say about it. So basically, the gist, and this is how it was sold to me. It was sold to me. A well-known author dies. She's very reclusive. Nobody knows anything much about her. She was charged with killing her husband, but didn't or whatever. Was acquitted. Lived on her own. Had lots of money, and left everything to her niece and nephew, but in order for them to get the money, they had to go to her house, go to her office, and see something. That's how it was sold to me, and I thought that sounds like a good time. In the office, there is a manuscript that they have to read, and it's basically the truth, the background of this author's life and how it all unfolded. And it is a trip. I'm telling you right now, if you can't handle like nasty at times, it's not just like horrific, bad, like murder scenes. It's just nasty at times. If you can't handle that, don't do this. I don't typically rate horror books because I don't read horror much. I think this is maybe my second or third horror book that I've ever read. It's fairly short. So I don't read it enough to rate it and say whether or not that's a good horror book or not. I would have given it probably 4 or 5 stars if I would have rated it. But because as far as horror goes, I think it did what it set out to do. Do I want to read any more books like that? No. But if that sounds like something that you like those kind of books, you might be interested. Just to let you know, like, it was well written, it was clever, and it was a different way of seeing things, but ew. That is all I can say, is just ew. Moving on to another book. Our book club book of the month was The 10,000 Doors of January by Alix E. Harrow. There is, or there will be, I think there is by the time this video goes up, a book chat, which is about like 18 minutes of me talking about this book. I have the worst time getting my words in the right order in sentences while I'm filming lately. It's very strange. But this is a portal fantasy about a gal named January, and there's a dual kind of story going on. There's she finds a book called The 10,000 Doors, and it has something to do with her. I'll just say that. And some of the things that she can do and that she's been experiencing. And there's an actual story within that book that we get to read, plus the story of January. I give this 4 stars, 4.5 stars. Different from anything that I've read lately, and so it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I really enjoyed this. I do highly recommend it. This was recommended by my hairdresser. My hardback hoarder, Allie, she had mentioned this book a couple months ago, and I've actually heard a lot of people talking about this book, but didn't know exactly what it was. And I recommend that for you. Go in blind. If you want to know a little bit more about it, there is a non-spoiler part to my book chat, and then I warn you when we go into spoilers. But if you are on the fence and want to know a little bit more about it, then check that out. But I'm not going to talk about that too much because I think I've talked about it enough. The next book I also read in a day was Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This is a lot of times recommended as a horror book. I found it to be just strange science fiction, so to speak. It was not a perfect book. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, something like that. It wasn't bad because people I found either love this book or hate this book or whatever, but I went in it kind of with just the basic premise. The basic premise is you have a boarding school with girls in it, and something starts to happen. They start to have body changes and things like that that are quite drastic and quite horrible, and so they get quarantined on this island. There's a little bit more to it than that, but again, this is a YA book, and so it's written YA, and keeping that in mind, I thought it was well done. Not perfect, but I loved it. I mean, I enjoyed every minute of reading this book, to be honest with you. I think I did go in with lower expectations, but I was interested enough to see what it was about. So if you like more science fiction, and it wouldn't say body horror, there are some weird things that are going on with the body, but I wouldn't necessarily call it body horror. The animals, the trees, everything around this island that they're on is getting changed by something scientific, and but there are some different like conspiracy and things that go along with it. So I do recommend this book. I think I give it 3 stars. I'm not sure. You can check my Goodreads, so it's always linked down below, and see what I actually gave it, but I do recommend it. It was a good time. fun book to read. The next book I read was Lord, the One You Love Is Sick by Kasey Thornton. That was hard to get out of my mouth. I saw this in my library. I noticed the North Carolina sticker, which I always try to look for, and I like the story that this verse goes along with in the Bible. This is not a biblical book or book about scripture. This is a this is a fiction novel with a secular themes. But it just caught my eye. So a good title, ladies and gentlemen, catches the eye. Again, I like to look for this North Carolina sticker. I live right in the heart of where NC State, University of North Carolina, Duke University, Meredith, Campbell, I live right in the heart of all of that. So a lot of the authors that I'll see actually are here. I never heard of this lady before, but she basically lives just down the road from me in Durham. I live in Wake Forest, literally down 98. And I could be close to her, which I wouldn't do that, don't know. But what I'm saying is I'm trying to support local authors, and I find it interesting because I love to see these towns written about North Carolina. I read something, or I saw something recently that said North Carolina, as far as dialects and things, it is the most diverse state in our country as far as cultures. We have so many different things, and so I have been all over the state and have lived even and been involved in different cultures within the state. So I love reading about these things, and so I always try to let that capture my eye. But anyway, what's really great about this book, and I believe I gave it 4.5, 5 stars, something like that. It is a novel told in stories. So it's basically short stories that make a novel. And so basically everybody is a main character in their own story, which I'm totally gonna trademark or copyright or something. Copyright Natasha Medina 2021, because that was genius. Everyone is the main character in their own story. But so we start off with a man who and his wife, and you find out like he's a sheriff deputy and all this stuff, and when he gets home finds that his wife tells him that his best friend has died, and they go to the funeral, and then you meet certain people, kind of because people are at the funeral, you meet certain people and you get certain ideas of things, and you kind of get a feel, and then you get the story from his perspective. Then, you know, you skip ahead, you get the story from the mother's perspective. You get the story from that wife's perspective. You get the story from the brother's perspective. And we're not talking like it's the same story told from everyone's point of view. It's as the story continues. Like the novel moves along throughout the timeline, but you pick up. And because it is a small town, a lot of people are in the story together, and it was just very clever. I really enjoyed this, and I highly recommend it. You can get it on Amazon. If you're in North Carolina, it's in our library system. Get your hands on this. Lord, the One You Love Is Sick, Kasey Thornton. It is a contemporary. I don't know how to describe these. It's hard hitting, and there's high stakes, and there's difficult discussions and all of that, but I really enjoyed this book, and I really need to look for more stuff by Miss Thornton, because that was really good. Alright, the last book that I finished, and before I get to this, I'll go ahead and tell you, I've been reading Emma by Jane Austen and still working on The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I've been reading those kind of on and off throughout the month. I'm hoping to finish them next month, but if I don't, whatever, we'll keep going. I've enjoyed them. I probably could have read 14 books this month if it weren't for the fact that I got really into documentaries about cults the past couple weeks. I don't know what happened to me. I think Ryan was watching one, and then I came in and like finished it. I mean, not in one sitting, because it was like one of those series ones, and then I picked up another one, and was like, are you kidding me? And then I got really like into them. So yeah. I don't know what got into me this month, but I was just like, I think I was like in that mode of learning. So now I'm reading like nonfiction books. And so it's kind of filling that void. I like to learn, and this time of year, especially when everybody's going back to school and people are going back to college. I loved college. Yeah, and I was a literature major, so it was always like reading and writing papers and just getting engrossed in things. And so it's this time of year that I just need to learn, and so I think that's just kind of carried over, and it probably will carry over for the rest of my life. But yeah, I'm gonna actually do a video about some of the documentaries and podcasts and stuff that I've been listening to lately, because I think they're really interesting and I think you guys might enjoy them. So I'm gonna do a video on that. But let's talk about the last book that I read and finished in October. And it is one of my 15 books that I challenged myself to read this year. I did finish the Miss Peregrine series, The Desolations of Devil's Acre, by Ransom. If you do not know what this book is about, it starts back in book 1 with Miss Peregrine's home for peculiar children. And these children have what are called peculiarities. So some may be able to make fire, some may be invisible, some may, there's one girl who floats, like she has to wear like armored boots to stay on the ground. Another one can release bees with, hey, shh, sorry, my dog's making noise. One can release bees, and one can control not wildlife, but plants and vines and things. She can make stuff grow, and it's really cool. There's a whole lot more to it. There's other like peculiar people who can't just walk around and pass as human, like normals, what they call them, normals, because they look very different. And there's also peculiar animals. So we have like dogs that talk and things like that. So it's very interesting. And so I love these books. They're very found family. There are different things that go on. So you have the first trilogy, which is more the European peculiardom and something that's going on with them there, and then that kind of resolves. And then you have your second trilogy, which the first two are basically focusing on the American peculiardom and how different it is. And then you have the last one, which is kind of bringing it all home. And yeah, there was one part in here that I was just like, huh? But it just, and that's what's funny is that happened to me at the third book. So the end of the first trilogy, there was a moment where I was like, huh, like this doesn't, okay, suspend our disbelief, let's go with that. So kind of the same deal, and I think it's just because I couldn't picture it in my head. I'm sure it makes perfect sense in Ransom head, and it may be in other people's head. But yeah, I really enjoyed this series, and I can see myself rereading it in the future because it was just fun. It's just a fun thing to do. And then the strange, peculiar things that these children can do and adults can do are it just make the story fun again. And then what's unique about, and everybody talks about when they talk about these books, is Ransom collects old photographs. And then he also uses from other people's archives, and he writes those into the story. So he may have a character and he may describe that character in a certain way, and then you turn the page and then there's a picture of the person. And it's usually like an unusual picture. I mean, like this one. This one's part of the story. And yeah, I just think it's interesting. It was a clever concept. Well executed, and I'm sad. I was really hoping that we would be like, haha, there's gonna be more. But yeah, so that is my October wrap up. I hope that I made sense to everybody. I feel like I was bouncing all over the place, but I don't know. Was I? I don't know. What are the books that you you read in the month of October, and what are some books that you plan on reading in November? I would love to know that too. I will see you again very soon right here on Nat's Beautiful Life. Have a great day, gorgeous.